I'll let you know when we're live. And we're live.
Good evening, and thank you very much, Madam Clerk. I would like to call this special council meeting of February 14th, 2022 to order. My name is Sandra Easton. I'm the Mayor of the Town of Lincoln and Chair of today's special council meeting. We are meeting electronically through Zoom during this declared emergency period, and members of the public may also observe the proceedings by accessing the live webcast at our YouTube channel. Madam Clerk, would you please begin the national anthem?
Thank you.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command. How conoce por televía, il se porte la croix, ton histoire est une épopée des plus brillants exploits. God keep our land, glorious and free. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. The images in that video clip are really quite beautiful. I think the sound still is quite unstable, however, but I hope that everyone enjoyed the scenery. It was really quite Canadian, there's no question. Niagara region is situated on treaty land. This land is steeped in the rich history of the First Nations, such as the Attawandarong, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe, including the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. There are many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people from across Turtle Island that live and work in Niagara today. The regional municipality of Niagara stands with all Indigenous people, past and present, in promoting the wise stewardship of the lands on which we live. Madam Clerk, would you please complete a roll call of council so that we can confirm everyone's attendance as we are holding the meeting electronically, and to confirm quorum. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Councillor Rajima.
Present.
Councillor Russell.
Here.
Councillor Pachariva.
Present.
Councillor Brunet.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Councillor Mcpherson.
Here.
Councillor Micklick.
Here.
Councillor Reimer.
Here.
Councillor Timmers.
Present.
Mayor Easton.
Present.
And we have quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. In addition, I would like to take a moment to welcome the staff we have joining us today electronically. Chief Administrative Officer Mike Kirkopoulos, Director of Finance and Administration and Innovation Lawrence Wagner, Director of Planning and Development Matt Bruder, Director of Community Services Shannon Mackay, Fire Chief Greg Hudson, Manager of Corporate Communications Liliana Busnello, Director of Public Works Dave Graham, CEO Lincoln Public Library Julie Andrews, Legislative Committee Coordinator Deanna Phillips. IT staff are also in attendance. Moderating and clerking the meeting today, we have our Director of Legislative Services and Town Clerk Julie Kirkolos. Also joining us this evening, Regional Councillor Foster from Niagara Region. Amy Brunette, Acting CEO, Pelham Public Library. Welcome, Amy. Tom Holinsky, Town Solicitor, Aird and Burles. Welcome, Tom. And Jeff Abrams and Janice Atwood-Potofsky, Integrity Commissioners from Principals Integrity. Welcome, Jeff and Janice, to our meeting this evening. As this is a virtual meeting, I will ask that we follow some procedures. Should there be a connection or service interruption, a service disruption for the chair, or if quorum is lost, the chair and or clerk will call a 10-minute recess to reconnect and to regain quorum. If a quorum is lost, the meeting will be adjourned. If connection is lost from the chair, deputy mayor or the vice chair will resume the meeting. Once reconnection is achieved, the chair will assume their role. Each member of council who wishes to speak, press the raise hand feature on your video call, and the clerk will track our speakers list today and then invite you to speak when I open it for comments or questions. Also, when I finish reading a motion and announcing the mover and seconder, the clerk will then call up the vote by reading each member of council's name out loud. Please remember to take yourselves off mute during this portion of the meeting so that you can confirm if you are in support or opposed. Also, when not speaking, please remember to put yourselves on mute. Do members have a declared interest? There being none, we'll move on to item number 6. Do members have any announcements? And we're limited to three items with our announcements. I see Councillor Regina. Please go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wanted to give an update, some information from the Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee. The Regional Transit On Demand smartphone app is now accessible for those with sight issues. I don't know how it works. I haven't seen it working, but I'm advised that someone with sight difficulties is now able to use the smartphone app now that it contains the accommodations necessary for someone with sight issues to order rides and purchase passes. Unfortunately, this was a miss when the contract was first established and apparently also in the recent one-year renewal of the pilot project, but has now been resolved after persistent people were persistent. Thank you to those that assisted in persistence. You know who you are, and thank you, Regional Councillor Foster, for bending ears and responding to the Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee that the changes were going to be done. And I also wanted to let you know that the Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee had a discussion about ways that online meetings can be conducted to support those with accessibility concerns. Some of the items are items that help us all, regardless of whether we have an accessibility issue or not. And I want to note also that these are general comments that were put together after committee members attended meetings across Niagara region. You'll recall a couple of the members spoke at our meeting a couple of months ago, and they are in no way specific to Lincoln's practices. So one of the items they brought up was to indicate to presenters how long they'll be in the waiting room. It's not always easy to predict, but it's possible to give a rough time frame. And we had feedback that not all municipalities were doing that. Again, the points I'm making are not necessarily specific to Lincoln at all. In fact, we received really good feedback from how our clerk's department was handling our meetings on and considering the needs of those that are participating electronically that might not necessarily be comfortable doing so. It's important to remember that as uncomfortable as that may be for most of us to attend an electronic meeting, it can be, in some cases, tenfold more uncomfortable for someone with a disability of some kind that's concerned about being able to communicate and being able to participate. Another item they suggested was that when sending the Zoom or Teams link, to provide a copy of the agenda and indicate where the presenter is on the agenda. Another item that was mentioned was to conduct an audio or sound check before a presentation while the presenters are waiting. And the last one is to ensure closed captioning is enabled at all times for all presentations. So I think that somebody that's running the meeting has to turn that on and have it available for the participants, and then they can enable it at the bottom of their screen. So I just wanted to share with you that I wanted to share that with you to keep accessibility issues top of mind for everyone, because that's my job as a Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee appointee. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Regina. Madam Clerk, do we have the closed caption feature turned on during this meeting?
I believe when the video is rendered at the end of this meeting, there is a closed caption that is capable of doing so.
So it's not available to those who are watching the meeting, the live meeting, but available for the YouTube viewing. Is that correct?
I believe so, but I can double check with our IT department in terms of the live webcast, but I do know that it's capable after the meeting is rendered and it's uploaded to YouTube. Absolutely.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. I don't see any other hands. We'll move on to item number 7, which is proclamations, and we have no proclamations this evening. And we have no recognition and achievements this evening. We're now considering items 9.1, special council minutes of January the 24th, 2022. Do members of council have any questions? I'm seeing none, and I have a motion moved by Councillor Pachariva and seconded by Councillor Brunet, that council approve the minutes of the following meetings of council, special council minutes of January the 24th, 2022. Madam Clerk, would you please call out the vote?
Councillor Rajima,
Councillor Regina,
Yes.
thank you. Councillor Russell,
Yes.
Councillor Brunet,
Yes.
Councillor Pachariva,
Yes.
Councillor McPherson,
Yes.
Councillor Micklick,
Yes.
Councillor Reimer,
Yes.
Councillor Timmers,
yes,
Mayor Easton,
support.
that carries.
We're moving on, councillors, to item number 10, which is delegations. We have 3 delegations this evening. Now I'm looking for Amy. Amy Gumet.
So they're currently in the virtual waiting room, Madam Mayor.
All right, okay.
Mhm.
So I'll just read the delegations, Madam Clerk, and then you will call them in. So we have 3 delegations. The first one is Amy Gumet, and is that the correct pronunciation? Julie Andrews, is that the correct pronunciation for Amy's name? Okay, thank you very much for that. And that is in regard to closed session agenda item 16.1 at the public library. Then we'll have Tom Holinsky, legal counsel from Airden Burles, regarding the closed session agenda item 16.2 on Blizzard Drive. And we have Jeff Abrams and Janice Atwood Petkovsky from Principals Integrity regarding agenda item 17.2, bylaw 2022-05, being a bylaw to adopt a code of conduct for members of the town of Lincoln and to repeal bylaw number 2017-83. And they will all be available to answer questions as they're brought forward when we arrive at each of those agenda items. All right. We have no council information to bring forward this evening, and there are no presentations this evening. So we'll move on to item 13, which is recommendations from standing committees, and we're now considering 13.1, Committee of the Whole minutes of February the 7th, 2022. Do members have any questions? I see no hands, and I have a motion moved by Councillor Mcpherson, seconded by Councillor Regina, that council approve the following recommendations from standing Committee of the Whole minutes of February the 7th, 2022. Madam Clerk, would you please call out the vote?
Councillor Rajima,
Yes.
Councillor Russell,
Yes.
Councillor Brunet,
Yes.
Councillor Pachariva,
Yes.
Councillor McPherson,
Yes.
Councillor Micklick,
Yes.
Councillor Reimer,
Yes.
Councillor Timmers,
yes,
and Mayor Easton,
Support.
and that carries.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. We're moving now to item number 14, which is notice of motion. And we're now considering a notice of motion that was brought forward by Councillor Brunet and endorsed by Councillor Timmers. This was first introduced at Special Council on January 24th and now for consideration. Councillor Brunei, would you please go ahead and speak to your motion?
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. So as you indicated, stepping back a little further, back in June of 2021, Councillor Timmers and I, with the full support of the Heritage Committee, passed a motion at that time for staff to look at a potential Heritage Conservation District study. And that was endorsed by all of council. And recently, Madam Mayor, in discussion with staff, I was just looking for an update on the RFP. And I was advised by staff that RFP was being launched, but that there was probably going to be up to 1 year to complete this study. So in discussion, and again with the full support of the Heritage Committee, we thought it was appropriate. Councillor Patrieve and I in Ward 2 have had a number of properties along that corridor of Lincoln Avenue through to Bartlett that have come up. A lot of these properties are on the Heritage designated and non-designated list. And we all know that there's a tremendous amount of development. We've had some demolition permits. So we felt it was appropriate in discussion with staff that we look at bringing this motion forward. In no way, shape, or form, Madam Mayor, are we looking to put up a barrier for any property owners that might be looking at doing some small alterations. This is not in any way, shape, or form to get in the way of any economic development or any permit activity. But we felt that this corridor is such an intense area of heritage that we felt it was appropriate to put the appropriate moratorium in place. Staff has been very supportive. I know Councillor Timmers, having spent many years on the Heritage, has worked very hard to set up the Heritage with previous Heritage members to set up the Heritage designated and non-designated list. I know this is very important with her. And I know, Madam Mayor, you've been very supportive going back to 2014 in looking at Heritage Conservation Districts. So I thank you for that, Madam Mayor. I look forward to the discussion with our colleagues. And I know CAO Kirkopoulos and the Director of Planning, I know, are standing by for some comments. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you so much, Councillor Brunei. I'm going to first go to Councillor Timmers as the seconder. This is a very important motion to both the mover and the seconder. Councillor Timmers, do you have any additional comments?
Yes, thank you, Maryson. I don't have too much more to add. Councillor Brunei pretty much covered all of the details. A Heritage Conservation District has been something that the Heritage Committee has been discussing for a very long time. And I think this is a good motion. I think this is a great step forward. And the Heritage Committee is very supportive, not only of doing the study, but also of the chosen area to begin with. So I don't believe I have anything else to add to that. So thank you very much, Maryson.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Kirkopoulos.
Through you, Madam Mayor. I think both Director Bruder and I can add a few comments. Matt can speak to more of the technical pieces, but this has been something that staff have supported. We've worked closely with our Heritage Committee as well as the two councillor representatives on Heritage. I think in this particular case, we understand, and I think Councillor Brunei highlighted why we want this particular corridor protected in terms of where we find ourselves at this particular point in time. Staff will always, I think, look for areas where we can apply the appropriate policy decisions and put in front of council recommendations. And in this particular case, we think completing the Heritage District study really is the best course of action in this particular area. Once that's completed, I think we'll have a better idea, better assessment of what's in the area, what needs to be protected, and then where we can work with property owners who may have some development or economic interests in terms of their properties. But Matt can speak maybe to a little bit of the specific details.
Okay, that's great. Thank you for your comments. Mr. Bruder, please.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Definitely a good synopsis by Councillor Brunei in terms of why we've looked at this. This is a corridor As was stated, it's got kind of, from that area, within the urban area of Beamsville, from Lincoln to Bartlett, kind of the highest concentration of properties that are either on the designated or non-designated list, meaning they could have potential heritage significance. That coupled with where it is located in central Beamsville, a lot of big lots that could otherwise be, foreseen as a potential redevelopment option. We felt it prudent while we're undertaking this study to ensure that we put a little bit of a pause on things until we are finished with our Heritage Conservation District study, which is really a study to identify, what are the attributes of the area? How can we preserve them as we move forward? I think it was stated by Councillor Bernay, it's not intended to simply stop development and say that can't happen in that corridor, but rather shape it and provide more of an informed framework as it pertains to the surrounding heritage attributes of that corridor, so that when we move forward, we have that behind us. So that's really the intention here. It's not that this motion doesn't necessarily to apply to just, minor renovations and things like that within buildings, but anything requiring a planning application, that's where we would be looking at. So those are my comments, but I'm happy to assist if there's any questions. Thank you.
That's fine. Thank you very much. And so, councillors, I'll turn to you now for questions of clarification, and we'll begin with Councillor Russell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Councillor Bernay, or perhaps Councillor Chambers, just a little more clarification on if this were to pass tonight. Again, it states that a pause on the receipt, all planning applications occur effective immediately. So I'm assuming that anything that is in the queue has already been received. Those would still go ahead without any ramifications from this motion. But anything after today's date, if it were to be received, it would be then subject to what's in this motion. Is that correct?
Okay, that's so, Mr. Bruder, would you deal with that? I know it's in the last paragraph, but could you just bring some clarity to that for the council?
Certainly, Your Worship. So I understand it. The next step, should this motion go forward, then the next step will be to actually develop and bring forward that interim control bylaw. You have to pass a bylaw to enable the start of that interim control period of 1 year. So that would be the next step. So that is when that bylaw is passed, that's when the moratorium, if you will kick in.
Just to follow up, Madam Mayor, through you.
Yes, yes.
As part of that interim control bylaw, if we get to that point and it comes forward, can we get a list as of that date of the properties that have been received up to that point that would fall into this district?
The ones in the hopper, is that what you're speaking to, Councillor Russell? Yeah. Mr. Bruder?
Through you, Your Worship, I don't think that would be too difficult to do. No, I think we can do that.
Thank you.
Okay, is that satisfactory, Councillor? Great. We'll move on now to Councillor Riley.
Thank you, Mayor Easton. Through you to Director Bruder. Very similar to Councillor Russell's questions. However, I'm concerned with the end of this. How do we get out of this? I like the terminology here, the pause on the receipt. There's not a total ban on work on Ontario Street. So I like that phrase. But I'm just wondering, it says upon completion of the Heritage Conservation District study. I'm assuming we as council have to pass that. Is there then a vote on the moratorium, where we're going to be spanning councils here, I'm assuming? So just some clarification about how we get out of this.
Okay. I think we've done this once before, but I don't know whether everyone is totally different. Mr. Bruder, could you answer the question?
Certainly, Your Worship. Yeah, that's a good question. So first of all, with respect to the Heritage Conservation District, once we go through that process and, should it be confirmed that that's, yes, exactly where we need to go for this corridor, you will definitely be involved as council. There will need to be a bylaw passed. There will need to be approval of the guidelines and policy framework that's being brought forward. So that'll definitely be a part of it. As for the interim control bylaw, they're allowed to go for 1 year with there is a possibility for an extension. We've done that before, but essentially, if the study is done, when it's done, it's a simple lifting. We bring forward a resolution to lift the interim control bylaw, but after 1 year, if we don't renew it, it's done anyways. So really the goal is that roughly coincides with the time we're estimating for completion with the Heritage Conservation District. So it should all line up fairly well from a timing perspective, and then we can move forward from there.
Okay, thank you. A follow-up, if I could, Mary.
Yes.
Just in regards to that, Matt, I'm assuming there'll be some recommendations coming out of this study too. Are they separate? Do we deal with them, like, do we pass the study and all the recommendations in there, or just I guess a little bit of clarification on that as well?
Yeah, through your worship, that's right. You would consider all the results of the Heritage Conservation District and the recommendations coming forward separate. And then once everything, once we get to that point, hopefully council is in approval. And then after that, we look to lift the interim control bylaw at that point.
Great, thank you, Matt. Thank you, Mary.
Thank you very much, Councillor. And Councillor Michalek.
Thank you, Mary Easton, through you to Mr. Bruder. So this motion calls for a pause of the receipt of all planning applications. So that means we're not looking at anything. And that's going to be for at least a year. And then following that is when we may, or depending on the timing of the study, we start looking. So technically speaking, theoretically, is it safe to say that we may not see anything, any shovels in the ground in this corridor for, say, 2 to 3 years?
Through you, your worship, not necessarily. I think there are some things that are potentially in the hopper now. There could be some other, like I said, some works, there could be some renovations. Maybe you won't see shovels in the ground for some of those, but they might be ongoing. But as Councillor Russell requested, we can bring forward kind of a list of the ones that are in the hopper. But I believe there are some. So
I'm aware of the ones that are in the hopper, but when it comes to looking at new applications, that's where we're handcuffing ourselves a little bit here in terms of time. And I look at various vacant lots, vacant parcels that could be redeveloped, and we're basically, that may not be in the hopper right now. That would be about a 2 to 3 year pause on that sort of things. And and as a follow up to that, have we consulted property owners, or have we given notice to members of that affected community that this may be happening?
Through you, your worship. So a couple of things. So it's not really, I wouldn't call it necessarily a 2 to 3 year delay, because I think what you're talking about is by the time, they go through all the planning processes and things, and then when they get to construction, it could be a few years, which is correct. But really, in terms of an actual planning application, that'll be delayed by 1 year. So they could be, once we get everything in place, they could put in for a planning application at that point. It wouldn't result in 2 years before they could do that, just 1 year. And then also from a notification standpoint, again, from our experiences and from the Planning Act and what it mandates, we haven't been providing notification. This is just something that the municipality, it's a Planning Act tool that we're allowed to implement without notification necessarily, just while we're doing a study in that particular area. It's very specific, and it's just a tool to ensure that, hey, we can undergo a study as complex as this and just temporarily make sure that we're being diligent in that regard before we move forward. So there isn't a notification requirement, so we haven't at this time notified anybody.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Then just a technical technical question through you, Madam Mayor. What about pre-consultation meetings?
Through your worship, I believe that was our intention. If they had been through a pre-consultation, we would consider those in the hopper.
But just to clarify, like upcoming, like new pre-consultation, like if there was a piece of land that somebody would want to do a pre-consultation meeting, is that on pause as well?
Through your worship, that's a good question. I don't necessarily think we would have to pause it, but it might be in their best interest to hold off anyways, just so they can, be privy to all the recommendations that could potentially come out of this study. So we would definitely highlight that for them when they come in. If they did want to engage us in discussions, staff often make themselves available even outside of a formal pre-consultation to bounce ideas off of. If developers want to share concepts, things like that, that can continue, but all under the umbrella that, by the way, you should know we're undertaking this study. So there could be some some further things to consider. So we would definitely include that caveat in those communications.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor and Counselor Regina.
Thank you, Madam. And just a question of clarification of the question that was asked earlier on about when this takes effect. So the decision that we make tonight does not need to be ratified at a subsequent meeting. It's in effect as of today, should this motion be passed. Is that correct?
Mr. Bruder?
Through your worship, no, Councillor, we have to, should this decision go through today in favor of this interim control bylaw, the next step is to actually pass the bylaw.
And that
So
would
once
be,
that's passed, we can bring that forward as soon as possible, and then that would initiate it. And I think, unless the clerk corrects me, I believe that's the process we need to undertake. Yeah.
Madam Clerk?
so it could be 2 weeks today.
Potentially, Councillor. Yeah, we still have to come back with the bylaw.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. And CEO Kokopoulos, some comments?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I think just to kind of pick up on Councillor Mikulic's question, I put my hand up when Mr. Bruder answered it, incredibly well. The only comment I would make is one of the things that we typically do, and that's not going to change, is engage with prospective business interests and residents on a regular basis. So there's a number of studies, Councillor Mikulic, I think maybe to put your mind at ease, that consultants, proponents, developers can continue to do under the caveat that they may need to be updated. And I know in past interim control bylaws that I've been involved with, that's something that we've often advised and something that particular individuals took us up on. So we're going to continue to be open to the conversations, continue to be transparent and honest with what we're doing and why we're doing it. And I think there's still work they can continue that saves time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kokopoulos. I don't see any other hands. I suppose, oh, I do. I see Deputy Mayor Mcpherson. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And just through you, and I'm just thinking about the downtown core specifically, and maybe some clarity around, any changes to those buildings there. I certainly understand the, no new construction of a building, but if building owners in the downtown core are looking to, update their buildings, change them, not dramatically, but change the facade and things like that. That is still, they're still able to do that, are they not? Through you to Mr. Bruder.
Mr. Bruder?
Thanks, Your Worship. It would depend on the specifics in terms of how significant the renovations are. I would say, like I say, a lot of them, if they require an application into the town, that would be something we'd likely want to put a pause on. But yeah, minor renovations and some upgrades that are, minor, maybe some aesthetic improvements, and maybe some maintenance or operational improvements, they can continue.
And follow up, Madam Mayor, if I may, that answer kind of hit on the CIP. So if they're applying for a CIP, a facade CIP, does that trigger a permit?
Through Your Worship, yeah, I would think that would be something we would probably want to be putting on hold as well, because then again, it would kind of depend. Some of our CIPs, they relate to things like, window replacements and things like that. I don't think we'd be getting into it with that per se, but again, it would I think it would vary in terms of how significant the work required as part of the CIP would be. So, if they need some type of permit application to do that work, the CIP permit in of itself, I don't think necessarily would be something that would trigger, but usually when the work's significant enough, there's another permit that's required as well that would. So those are the comments I'd offer on that.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Timmers, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mary. So just a tiny housekeeping item with regards to the motion. It's referring to Bartlett Street. Is it not Bartlett Road? I've never heard it called Bartlett Street. So just so it's clear. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Correct me if I'm not accurate on that, but
No, I believe you are, Councillor.
okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Bruder.
Thank you very much. One of the things that I think is appealing about this motion, I'd like to thank the councillors for bringing it forward, is that we don't have a lot of tools at our disposal when you're already a well-developed community to stop things and have a look around and see what it is that you want to, what's the next step that you want to take. And the vernacular architecture in our the older parts of our community across the town are very important. So this provides us with an opportunity to look and see what the future potential could be. And so I can certainly see the concern of the Heritage Committee and thank them very much for advising us on this matter. I have a motion moved by Councillor Brunet and seconded by Councillor Timmers. Whereas the town of Lincoln is seeing considerable economic and residential interest in older heritage areas of the municipality, and whereas many areas along the King Street corridor from Lincoln Avenue to Bartlett Road are identified as having potential heritage significance or are already designated. And whereas council for the town with staff have begun a review and study in respect of its land and heritage planning policies, including consideration of identifying the corridor as a potential heritage conservation district. And whereas the objective of Heritage Conservation District study will be to consider the corridor and, if identified as appropriate, develop standards, policies, and guidelines to protect heritage resources along the corridor in the context of future anticipated development. And whereas it is expected that the study of a Heritage Conservation District will take approximately 1 year to complete. And now therefore be resolved that a pause on the receipt of all applications occur effective immediately within the King Street corridor and within the Beamsville urban area, not including any minor renovations to commercial buildings or development concepts already submitted to and discussed with town staff or applications already submitted, including pre-consultation or planning application submissions to the town, until the completion of the Heritage Conservation District study. Madam Clerk, would you please call out the vote?
Councillor Regina,
Yes.
Councillor Russell,
Yes.
Councillor Brunet,
Yes.
Councillor Pachariva,
Yes.
Councillor Mcpherson,
Yes.
Councillor Miclick,
Yes.
Councillor Reimer,
Yes.
Councillor Timmers,
Yes.
Mayor Easton,
Vote.
and that carries.
Excellent. We move on now to item number 15, which is the report of municipal officers. And we're now considering item 15.1, Mayor's report to community. I want to thank everyone who is present this evening and those that may join in a few days' time on YouTube. And I spent today with those who I'm close to, sharing Valentine's, flowers, chocolates, kisses, and mutual caring. And my Valentine, I shared the over 17-year card that Hallmark made. And the verse on it is the best I've seen. So I'm afraid they're not making any money out of me on Valentine's cards at this stage of the game. It was good to have a day like today. We've been surrounded by so much controversy, and we share hope that everyone throughout all of this is remaining safe. And we do extend compassion for those in Ottawa whose lives are upside down as collateral damage, if you will. And we work in all of our care institutions. It's very difficult. And so many articles and blogs are being produced now and telling us about the suffering that's going on both sides. We send our compassion and warmest thoughts and thanks to all caregivers and everyone. And we do this day after day and week after week until this is over, because these are the people that are keeping work going forward. I'm very pleased with the work that the town has done on the GoVax clinics. that have been hosted in Lincoln. They started on the 9th day of the 10th month, I believe. And we also had a clinic on January 15th, which resulted in 400 doses. So approximately 3,000 and counting, and the majority are for the booster. So we've got 6 more that are scheduled at the moment. These are all indoor clinics for the most part. It's too cold to have them in the go-backs bus. And it's an indication, I think, to all of us that there are many people who are truly interested in receiving the vaccine. And so we're facilitating that. I want to thank everyone who has been providing advice to council and the time that you contribute to put these thoughts together and to share them. And I believe that it's really an indication of a level of stability in our community that is important right now. And I hope that you will continue to do that. You don't have to agree. It's about understanding the process, being heard, and being able to influence. And I think sometimes you would be surprised at the level of influence that you have. Today was certainly a brilliant example of a Canadian winter day, just absolutely acres of white land that extended across, certainly up in the mountain. We hope that you have shared many of the sentiments in regard to your friends and family. We live in Lincoln, where we all strive to be good neighbors, where we're helpful, we're encouraging, constructive in our opinions, where children are encouraged to achieve their very best. I want to thank you, as always, for your interest in local government and for the time you take to understand, to influence the decisions of council. On January the 24th, we had our last council meeting. And since then, a member of councils and myself, as well as staff, attended the Rural Ontario Municipal Association Conference. We saw ministers from Seniors and Accessibility. We delegated to the Minister of Infrastructure on the West Lincoln Grimsby Bartlett Road bypass. We delegated to the Minister of Finance and to the Environment, Construction, and Parks. And since January the 24th, we've had 2 ward meetings, which were just excellent attendance and excellent participation, Ward 2 and recently Ward 3. There have been many snow updates by our staff member, Liliana Busnello, and meetings with members of our constituents regarding snow and parking and dilemmas in neighborhoods, and people have brought forth ideas for alternative arrangements. I attended for the swearing in of the Lincoln Seniors Executive, which is a very robust organization, I believe almost 100 members. And we had a regular regional councilors town hall as well. That was last week and also well attended. And there have been bi-monthly or bi-weekly COVID meetings with Dr. Hergy on the COVID situation, and information is sent forward on a very regular basis by Dr. Hergy, as well as our own CAO, Mcpherson. Last week, I presented the Canadian recommendations from the Mayor's Advisory Committee of the Great Lakes and St. Lawrence Basin. This was a mid-year meeting, and our federal minister, Mr. Piccini, spoke on the Canadian commitment to fund research. There was a meeting, public meeting of the Jordan Lions Park renewal on February the 9th. Again, excellent participation. Many people who have a long history living in the area and a great deal to offer. There was a check presentation to 3 groups that won the Miracle of Lights. This was sponsored by the Community Care of West Niagara and the Town of Lincoln. Some of these members of the community also collected food from people that came to see their wonderful light displays during the Christmas season. I just want to remind everyone that public advisory committees are a very important part of how this council conducts its business. Since 2014, we have advanced the number of public advisory committees to 10. And since the last our last council meeting, and I don't think I'm missing anybody, but we've had a meeting of the Heritage Committee, the Age Friendly Committee, the Active Transportation Committee, the Museum Advisory Committee, and the Library Committee. And these advisory committees have a great deal to offer. It's another voice in the community by people who may have expertise in this area, but are certainly interested in ensuring that some of their ideas are tabled and begin to influence the policy of council. So I wanted to mention that because it is important that we hear people throughout our terms of office, and this is one of the most important ones. And we have one or two council members sit on each one of these committees. And that is my report for this evening. Thank you. And I'll turn now to item 15.2 and call on Regional Councillor Foster for his report. Welcome, Rob.
Good evening, Council. Good evening, Mayor Easton, and thank you for having me here again this evening. A couple of things, and of course, you mentioned Valentine's Day, so of course I've got Sue not particularly happy with me that I'm on the town council meeting, but I will go and soothe her over afterwards. That's my goal this evening. Just a quick comment. Very, very pleased to see your new or your new potential codes of conduct and rules around the order of council and committees coming through this evening and going through your processes. We're going through this at Niagara Region as we're speaking. I'm on the procedural committee there as well. We've been re-examining the code of conduct to bring it more into alignment with a number of things. And this has come from the learning of all of us in the last 3 years on regional council. We are looking at a previous code of conduct, Mayor Easton would be aware of it, that was brought forward by John Mascarin to the regional council, but it was kind of eviscerated by the previous council. So we're taking a look at it and looking to do appropriate updates. And we're also taking a look at a variety of areas around the way that council is run. I quite like some of the things that you guys are doing on Lincoln Council. So I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to do a few things in some of that area as well. Tonight, my report, and I'm just going to bring this up because it is now hidden away on my screen. I want to talk a bit about public health this evening, and I'm going to continue on from where Mayor Easton had with this. Just if all of you aren't aware, the Prime Minister today invoked at about 4:30 this afternoon the Emergency Act, and a number of things are going on in that area. It is quite a time in Canada that such an act has been invoked. This is the first time this particular act has been used since it was brought in 1988. So obviously there's a number of issues that are going on. I can tell you my son-in-law works for the Toyota plant in Kitchener, and that plant has come to a close because the parts have not been getting through from across the border, and so there are major issues going on in the automotive sector, and I think our senior levels of government have very, very good justification for making some very tough decisions at this time. In the area of public health, I've left some notes for you guys and some of my feelings on it, but I think I might just actually read what it is that I sent to you to put it on record. I want to give a shout out to all of those who have taken this public health crisis seriously, have thought about the community, have done all they can to ensure their own safety as well as others, and have followed what our province and public health officials have recommended. Get vaccinated. Some very interesting statistics. Over 1 million doses have been administered in Niagara. 88.4% of those 18 plus have received a second dose. And actually with the statistics, it's over 90%. It's something like close to 93% now where people have actually now gone and received a first dose as well. Caseloads are dropping with 1,919 active cases as of February the 13th. The region provides a series of monitoring indicators that are really quite important to all of us. The effective reproduction number by week as of February the 5th is at 0.8. What that means, by the way, is that the target is 1.0 or less. So it means that the reproductive rate of the virus and the Omicron version of this is on the decline, and that's a very positive thing for us. However, there's an awful lot of people still have the COVID Omicron variant at this time. The numbers are still high on the number of new cases that have come into play. The healthcare capacity is still sitting at 99%. The good news is that the Fort Erie Urgent Care Center is now taking some people through it again. They've been able to provide some staffing there, but again, things are kind of slowly moving in the right direction in Niagara Health System. The other good news number is that the intensive care beds are less than 90%, which is the target. So it's sitting at 84.9%. Still high, but at least that's going in the right direction as well. So based on statistics and things are going in the right direction, I personally want to thank all those who have done their part when it comes to public health here in Lincoln and across Niagara. And it's thanks to your care and unselfishness that we are getting to the stage where things are reopening. So, and I know all of you on this council have been very active supporters to make sure all of this has been going in the right direction. Just to let you know, this morning, the full effect of Niagara Region policy on vaccinations came into play. There were terminations of a number of staff that came into play with that. So the reality is that we were very serious about the policy in and around vaccinations, and that could actually come into play. So with that, I'm going to leave that. That's not a particularly positive note, but I will leave it at that. Thank you, Mayor Easton.
Thank you very much, Councillor Foster. And I will turn to the councillors now. Any questions on the report, or there may be other things that of a regional nature that you would want to speak to the council about? I'll turn to Councillor Pachariba.
Thanks, Your Worship. And Rob, thank you very much for coming tonight. Always good to see you. Wanted to, and I don't know whether you're going to save this for next meeting, so I don't want to steal your thunder, but the diversion rates that came out from the region with respect to recycling and green bin in the latest flyer that everyone received. I mean, there was a lot of consternation about the every other week garbage collection, but the numbers have shot up immensely. So just wondered if you wanted to touch on that, because I think that's a feather in your cap.
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Mayor Easton. I think Sandra and I have both talked about this a fair bit. We're both very pleased in what we have seen with the waste management file, and it's gone up dramatically. The amount that's been diverted into the green bin for sure. And like it's ranging in the range of about 25% has been shifted into that. A lot of recycling that's going on as well. We're always going to be doing better. There's some discussion about what are the next steps to go and get us into that next level with this. I think that's going to be important. And the other thing that I really want to talk to you guys about, and Councillor Njima and I have talked about this a few times, and that is reviewing coverings for the for our recycling bins, particularly, you know, people through no fault of their own are putting stuff out and suddenly a windstorm comes up and you end up with stuff all over the neighborhood. I've had discussions with Catherine Habermill on this one. Got to admit that that the region hasn't been particularly forthcoming on wanting to really go down the road with this that much. So anyway, I'm pushing away on that one, and I will be reporting back to you guys even more on that one in the very near future. So thank you for the question, Councillor Patriva.
I see Councillor Michalek. Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you, Mayor Easton. Through you to Councillor Foster, thank you again. You always take our questions. It's appreciated. You made mention of the Niagara Health System and the capacities and where we stand. What about the long-term care centers? And I ask that question because their capacities, I feel or believe, would impact the capacities of our ERs and our hospital beds. If there's nowhere to put people that are waiting for a long-term care facility, that would, in my estimation, mean that they would be stuck in an ER or in the hospital. Can you comment to that?
That's a really, really interesting question, Councillor Michalek, and again, through you, Mayor Easton. We're apprised, by the way, as councillors on particularly in and around COVID and the strategies that are going on with our long-term care facilities, as well as some of the problems that it is that that we're running into. Both the mayor and I receive some confidential information, but also some important information that goes on about those particular areas. What I will do for you, though, is, and actually, I think I will enjoy going and finding this information out anyway, Councillor Michalek, but I'll come back to you at the next meeting and talk about that issue. I'll reach out to Commissioner Jubilee and make sure that I give you a clear picture on this.
Thank you, Councillor Foster. I think that's an important piece to this puzzle. If we have nowhere to put people when the ER services are no longer needed, I feel like they're stuck and taking up beds and, you know, increasing capacity that may not necessarily be the right place for them at that time. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. And Councillor Regina.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to back up and just comment on Councillor Foster's discussion about the coverings for the recycling bins. Thank you for persisting on that. And during our last round and discussion about this, somebody came over and gave me, I remember Councillor Foster has a net that he puts over his recycling bin and it attaches at the corners. Somebody came to my house and gave me it's made of recycled tires, and it's about this thick, and you just kind of lie it over top of your recycling bin and tuck. There's cutouts in the corners, and you just tuck it around the edges, and it stays on there. And the guys come by and they lift it off, they empty it, and then they just put this rubber floppy lid back into my recycling bin, and I bring it back in the garage. And it's worked really well. It's sturdy. I really like it. You can throw it, kick it, nothing's going to happen to it. It's not going to break. It's not going to blow away in the wind. And I think people would use it. So I just wanted to share my experience with that, because I've been using it for probably a year now, or at least 6 months.
Through you, Mayor Easton. So actually, it's really good that you're doing that. The study that went on, of course, you and I had been pushing for some time to do a study, particularly in the Serena area. We were getting a lot of complaints at one time. Back when I was the ward councillor, and I'm sure the two of you have been receiving additional over the last couple of years. But there was a study that was done in there, and it was using the hard plastic coverings to go, and that particular study didn't turn out very well. The use of it was quite good at the beginning when they introduced it, and then it kind of went down from there. An awful lot of things got broken relatively easy, et cetera, as well. And it never was, by the way, the solution that I have ever thought was going to be appropriate. I know the blanket piece that you're talking about has been something the region has looked at, and I have been pushing the netting for some time with them to at least investigate. So just stay tuned. We will continue the battle on this this one, and hopefully put something appropriate in place.
Thank you very much, Councillor
Thank you.
Foster. Councillor Nchima. I don't see any other hands. I have a motion moved by Councillor Reimer and seconded by Councillor Pachariva that council receive and file as information the following reports of municipal officers: mayor's report and regional council update. Madam Clerk, would you please call out the vote?
Councillor Regima,
Yes.
Councillor Russell,
Yes.
Councillor Brunei,
Yes.
Councillor Pachariva,
Yes.
Councillor Mcpherson,
Yes.
Councillor Miclick,
Yes.
Councillor Reimer,
Yes.
Councillor Timmers,
Yes.
Mayor Easton,
For
and that carries. Deputy Mayor, you have your hand up. Is there something you want to add?
Just a comment while I have Councillor Foster on, if I may, Madam Mayor.
yes, go ahead.
Just a thank you to Councillor Foster for attending our ward meeting the other night. Very much appreciated. There were certainly regional questions that were posed during our ward meeting, and your presence was valued. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Mcpherson. And as you know, there is a ton of things coming down the road at the east end of town, particularly with the work on Jordan Hollow, the bridge, the work at 19th. We got to get our act together when it comes to downtown Vineland, all these other things. So an awful lot of stuff coming along. So I really enjoyed it. Actually, I enjoy going to all of your ward meetings. It does provide a good opportunity to listen to the concerns you guys are having and see where I can also help. So anyway, thanks guys. Have a great evening.
Thanks very much, Councillor Foster. We're now on item number 16. Motion to consider confidential items, 16.1 and 16.2. Motion to consider confidential items. Before I read the motion and the motion to move into closed, I would like to explain what will happen for those watching this electronic meeting. First, there will be a closed session statement that the clerk will go through for all of council and staff that will be attending the closed session. Once that is completed, we will move on with the motion to move into closed. The clerk will be turning off the live webcast during the closed portion of the meeting. Once we have completed the closed portion of the meeting, we will resume with the live webcast and carry on with the public portion of the meeting, and we'll read the motions in public session. I will ask the clerk to conduct the closed session statement for all of council and others attending the closed session. Go ahead, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. All members are reminded that any discussions in closed session are to remain confidential as per our procedural bylaw and our code of conduct for the council of the town of Lincoln. Before we begin, I need each member that is attending electronically to confirm the following: that you understand that matters are to remain confidential, confirm that no one else is present with you, confirm that no one can hear this closed session, and confirm that you are not using any electronic devices other than your tablet, computer, or telephone for the video conferencing, and confirm that you are not recording this portion of the meeting. If you acknowledge all of the above, please reply with "I understand" and confirm to all of the statements as I read your name aloud. Mayor Easton?
I understand and confirm to all of the statements.
Thank you. Councillor Regima?
I understand and confirm to all of the statements.
Councillor Russell?
I understand and confirm to all of the statements.
Councillor Brunei?
I understand and confirm to all of the statements.
Councillor Pachariva?
I understand and confirm to all of the statements.
Deputy Mayor Councillor Mcpherson?
I understand and confirm to all the statements.
Councillor Miclick?
I understand and confirm to all of the statements.
Councillor Timmers?
I understand and confirm to all of the statements.
Councillor Reimer?
I understand and confirm to all the statements.
Our CAO, Mr. Kirkopoulos?
I understand and confirm to all of the statements.
Our Director of Finance, Administration, and Innovation, Lawrence Wagner?
I understand and confirm to all of these statements.
Director of Special Projects Kathleen Dale,
I understand and confirm to all the statements.
Director of Planning and Development Matt Bruder,
I understand and confirm to all of the statements.
Director of Public Works Dave Graham,
I understand and confirm to all the statements.
Director of Community Services Shan McKay,
I understand and confirm to all of the statements.
our Fire Chief Greg Hudson,
I understand and confirm to all of the statements.
Manager of Corporate Communications Liliana Busnello,
I understand and confirm to all of the statements.
our CEO of the Lincoln Public Library Julie Andrews,
I understand and confirm to all of the statements.
our Legislative Committee Coordinator Deanna Phillips,
I understand and confirm to all the statements.
our Acting CEO of Pelham Public Library Amy Gumet,
I understand and confirm to all the statements.
our Legal Counsel from Aaron Bearless Tom Helinski,
I understand and confirm to all of the statements.
and I, as the Town Clerk, understand, confirm to all the statements. We're completed, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I have a motion moved by Councillor Pachariva and seconded by Councillor Regina. Under Section 239 of the Municipal Act, notice is hereby given that council adjourned to closed session in order to address items 16.1 and 16.2 as follows. Item 16.1, pursuant to Section 239B, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal employees. D, labor relations or employee negotiations. And K, a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to the applied negotiations as it pertains to the Lincoln Public Library. Item 16.2, pursuant to Section 239(2)(c), a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality as it pertains to Blizzard Drive. Madam Clerk, please call out the vote.
Councillor Regina,
Yes.
Councillor Russell,
Yes.
Councillor Brunet,
Yes.
Councillor Pachariva,
Yes.
Councillor McPherson,
Yes.
Councillor Micklick,
Yes.
Councillor Reimer,
Yes.
Councillor Timmers,
Yes.
Mayor Houston,
Sorry.
and that carries.
Julie will, Madam Clerk, would you please proceed with the technical requirements to move into closed and confirm when we're ready to proceed?
Thank you.